The ROTH Show, brought to you by Ink, the Original.
We as musicians, we're not self-taught. I'm not self-taught anything. I'm the result of instructors, teachers, professors, a couple of probation officers, and so are the Van Halens. And you hear it in the music. So it constantly comes back in revision. The Birds and the Bees just did a whole album with Paul McCartney's newest producer of just Van Halen material. I don't know if you've heard it, but they feminized everything. I've done big band versions of Van Halen material. I've heard Aztec Camera do something of Jump. I even did a thing with Bluegrass Pros. I went to Nashville because I'm country at heart. I like dogs and, dirt trail symphony kind of things outdoors. And hey, even that was super stellar. So picking your favorite song, it depends on your style, what you actually wear to work. Usually works best if you actually need a pickup truck to drive to work, and if you actually use your jeans at work. Consequently, Van Halen audience, just like my solo audience, is Harleys and Ferraris parked in the same parking lot. Hell's Angels and the Judge who threw them in the bank standing right next to each other, and their wives going, stand up. I love this song. We're dancing. First thing that I said when I had in my big 3 car accidents, I've only been in 3 big car accidents as a backseat participant, and there are 2 kinds of people after a parking accident where you park at 50 miles an hour. First is when somebody turns and goes, oh, Jesus, is my face okay? And that came from a bass player. Then there's the kind like me with first thing without even thinking, I go, how are you? You okay? And universal means that. So it includes rock and roll big time. Right across the street is Steve and the Arrow Jones. There's the Journeys are walking by. Def Leopards. I'm not even sure what kind of critter that is, but it's an awesome catalog. Hello. They're right across the street at the same week. Okay. The only one who has the imminent distinction this time in Las Vegas, baby, is me, because I'm opening on Elvis's birthday. Let's let the poetry of that sink in.
Wow. Guitars,
damaged lives on the road to ruin.
And this road leads to
Vegas, baby!
It's gonna be a party, and it's your turn, darling.
It couldn't have happened, but it did. Me.
David Lee Roth, Double Trouble Guitars. Diamond Dave, the boss of Big Town, and I'm bringing the big sound in the big town the way it sounds on the record. High def 4K for your booty.
Brains burning, butts twerking.
Every classic Van Halen tune, and we're putting the boom in the room.
Only thing missing now is you.
January, spring break 2020. Yo!
Vegas, baby! This is one of the original interactivities. This started many, many decades ago, long before the digital empire was even a dream in Gates's brain. Hello. A Van Halen gig starts 3 weeks in advance. I've been to sing-sings in New Guinea where the natives start getting dressed up, putting the paint and the feathers in their hair a month in advance. You sleep in it, and you develop your show and your costume and your haircut and your shoes, and the classic Van Halen fan does exactly the same thing. And you set aside all that you would combine for Halloween, New Year's, your birthday, and Kwanzaa, just in case you're very diverse, okay? And you pack that in. Think about the preparation for New Year's is always better than the New Year's party. Hello. You start out about 6 hours early. You put some Al Green on the radio, maybe a little Zeppelin. You're going to feed the dog. The dog barks. You say, the dog must be barking because he wants me to smoke a cigarette, which I never do, but it's New Year's. And you fire up a cigarette and you call a friend and they go, hey, go put Pornhub on the internet. I want to show you something. You pretend you've never heard of Pornhub and you squeal in delight. The dog barks and it seems to indicate dog-wise canine voice. You should have something to drink with that cigarette. And it's about 4 hours away before you even call the Uber. And the party never delivers on that level. All of that warm-up. I, of course, deliver 26 times if you're familiar with my song catalog. And you can stop lying because I led an entire generational prison break right out the door. And their sons and daughters. If you don't know me, your dad and your mom and your stepmom and your other dad do. So stop lying. How many kids? I turned to somebody, a very good friend of mine, the woman who runs the show over at Henson Recording, which is on La Brea and Sunset. Everybody from Metallica, Mariah, McCartney, same day. You'll run into them all in the hallway. She got married. Fariel. And her husband is a music director, producer, composer, does all the music for 25 television shows. I walked in the reception. He turns right away from his beautiful bride and goes, I know you. You're the sound of my family. I said, what do you mean? He said, my brother is here. These gentlemen are about 45 years old. He says, the only time we spent with our father ever was once every 2 weeks. We'd put on Van Halen and go outside and wash the pickup truck together. I take that real serious. I take that very, very seriously, very seriously. I ran into a scoutmaster over at the burger place here the other day. It's like New Jersey stories. If you have a drop of Springsteen in you, you know exactly these kinds of tales. 4 Eagle Scouts walked in, 3 of them Chinese, a pale face, and a Mexican kid. And they all sit down at the burgers. They're Eagle Scouts. You know how much it takes to get a merit badge on that sash? Holy mackerel. I walked up to him and I said, can I buy you gentlemen lunch? Only the dad recognized me. He said, oh my God, you're that guy. I said, indeed I am. He says, were you a Boy Scout? I says, I was. I was a tenderfoot for 3.5 years. I never even made it to 2nd class. I have such a respect for you. He said, and did the Scouts do anything for you? I said, yeah. I went climbing in the Himalayas. I've been surfing in Bora Bora, and I became a millionaire rock star. And those kids threw their hands up and laughed. They had no idea who I was, but they knew that job description. And I paid for burgers that night. That's in my voice. That's what I bring to you on that stage. And that's the kind of stories I tell in between, too. It's a very different kind of a mojo, because I went out into the territory with the idea, like a Mark Twain or something, like a Hunter Thompson. I'm going to go put myself in the middle of the storm, and then I'm going to come back and tell you how it was. And then we're going to sing about it together. What does it mean, run with the devil? What does it mean when I say jump? These are all verbs, man. Why are they all verbs? And when we say dance, how long? All night. And that's Las Vegas, man. And all night is 3 days long. Remember, Van Halen was popular in the 80s, but it's a 70s band. And in the 80s, that was a short decade because it was up all night. Las Vegas, same thing.
Daily Roth.
On a hellbound train.
Vegas, baby! Noisy little town on a Saturday night.
And every other night of the week, too.
Every night is opening night. It's a Vegas thing. Diamond Day.
Sin City.
Moby Dick in a goldfish bowl.
Makes perfect sense.
It's Vegas, baby!
Thematic solos that are closer to what saxophone lines are. I played saxophone as a kid for many, many years. Started off on a rented saxophone and a tutor, when I was in 3rd grade, and continuing all the way up. So when you hear my vocals, it sounds like a memorable thematic, more so from theater or Broadway, and that's why the songs have lasted so long. When it came time to write solos, either you can play something we'll call lickety-split, 32nd, 64th notes. It's very quick, something a little bit closer to maybe what Zeppelin's doing in different parts. My solos are like the Beatles. You can hum along with them. And when it came to a drift and Eddie couldn't figure out a way, that's my expertise. So did you ever notice how the solo in Running with the Devil sounds a lot like the opening to Yes's Roundabout? Uh-oh, you're thinking about it, aren't you? Well, no, that's the intro, and we change a note or two. Of course, it's called Working from Resource. Or you can sit in the middle of an empty room and hope Jesus talks to your inner consciousness. I don't know if that works all the time. Probably better to start to work from a resource and then go from there, okay? Nobody ever accused me of trying to sound like Mick Jagger, which was all I was trying to do in Ain't Talking About Love. There was no other ambition in my head. I tried to sing it. I tried to phrase it. I tried to write the lyric exactly like I can't get no satisfaction. I ain't talking about love. Exact same thing. And nobody has ever, this is the very first time I'm bringing it up, and nobody has ever said to me, are you trying to be Mick Jagger? And I would have told them clearly. House of Blues at Mandalay Bay is perfect for seeing the show. You know what the break point is? You're going to wonder, how big is too big when you're coming to see an artist, especially one like myself? If you can see eyebrows, it's the perfect size. Think about, when was the last time you went to a Kenny Chesney show and saw anybody's eyebrows for less than $500 a ticket? Not. You're going to be 80 yards back at a Springsteen show, and you can't even tell who you're looking at because they're all wearing black clothes. I went to the last Bruce Springsteen show with 80,000 people, spent about $300. I was so far back, it turns out I was watching the drum tech for 4 songs. I didn't have binoculars. He's a pretty good performer, turns out. This is not a concert. This is an interactive experience. You go to Las Vegas to celebrate life, and life loves those who love life. And we toast to each other. It's the in-betweens here. Guys familiar with the Springsteen show that's happening over in New York City, right? $1,500 a ticket, and he's just all the in-betweens. My mom told me, Dave, I like you better in between the songs. I said, is that because of the stories? She said, no, it's because you're not singing. Individuals that grew up with the music. This is what I'm looking for now, not individuals who've learned it along the way. The first song I ever played was da 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 da. All right, Smoke on the Water, and it's in the blood. First song they ever played was You Really Got Me when they were in grade school. So it's in the blood, it's in the DNA, and they have a reverence for it, the same way as perhaps the new young cast of Porgy and Bess, which is $1,500 a ticket on Broadway as we speak. West Side Story will certainly be following on the heels of that success because it's Leonard Bernstein. And hey, if it's in your blood and you have a respect for that kind of music, then it's your whole life. It's not like, okay, I'll do country for a while and then I'll do rock for a while. This is what you do. Sort of like being a sushi chef. They usually do that, and that's it for their whole career. And playing this kind of music is a super specialty. It's like artisanal small blend scotch. You will spend your whole life building the place where you create that, and then you will spend your whole life perfecting it, and God bless. It's the same thing as everything's artisanal now, okay? You have small-time shoemakers who can only turn out 50 pairs of shoes a year. They charge you for it, but that's handmade. I know people who make artisanal, you ready for this? Chicken wings. And you're going, how's that? I don't know, mango, maple, walnut puree with, it's a $7 chicken wing. And before you laugh, remember that $7 milkshake in Pulp Fiction. Even John Travolta sat back and said, now that's a good milkshake.
David Lee Roth.
Las Vegas After Dark.
Rock and Roll Confidential. Double guitar. And it sounds like the record. House of Blues. Make yourself at home. Residence. Moving in. Vegas, baby! Circumstantial evidence. Diminished capacity. 96.3 KKLZ. I'm Diamond Dave. Sound like a weekend to me.
I'm not sure what that means, but it is like Kofifi from the president, maybe. There's you remember when he mistyped it in his tweet? Steve Miller also have the Pompatus of Love or whatever it was. If there's a mispronunciation or is that intentional? We don't know. But it certainly is international. That I've always maintained, by the way, that as a vocalist, you should be able to be understood very comprehensively by people who don't speak your native language. All of my best music is best understood by animals, small children, and people from out of state. I'm not sure what that's a good thing, but it is a thing. I got a job as a midnight DJ on Tokyo FM when I was living and I barely speak Japanese. So I was babbling away in a mixture of English and Japanese, okay? Back and forth, back and forth. Half the audience has no idea what I'm saying, but they sure love the way I says it. I love all different kinds of music. My core is classic rock. All right, but that is a composite of many different ingredients. First record I ever bought was Major Lance doing That was actually the title. You had to go to Canterbury Records at the age of 11 and sing the title to the angry-looking school teacher type who only sold Symphony. Holy mackerel. That was my first cultural collision. Do you have And she said, yes, I do. And took me I'm not kidding you. Canterbury Records specializes down on Colorado Boulevard in Little Lonesome Pasadena, right? I'm 11 years old. My parents told me, you want that record? You go get it. That's 2 miles each direction. I walked, okay? Now, sitting over on my table here is the second record that I bought. The record, not one like it, which is the second Beatles record. And I had to pull the weeds for 2 full days on that one. And I worked hard for it. That record's not going anywhere, and no, you can't borrow it. Van Halen music, or the classic material that I've done, transcends just one genre. The Birds and the Bees, who were produced by McCartney's newest producer, just did an entire record with the likes of Dave Grohl playing drums and so forth of just classic VH material. All right. I've heard bands like Aztec Camera do my material. I've heard big band arrangements of the material. And of course, classic dance. Anything that you dance to, we'll call it floor. Anything that is even vaguely floor will apply to this kind of music. It's girl-friendly. And we're a 70s band that had to work 5 sets a night, 5 nights a week. And the only real absolute was that if you couldn't dance to the music, you got fired. There were no sound systems, all right? And that's why all classic material that I've done, California Girls, Devil, Jump, all of that, is all right between 100 and 125 beats a minute. It was my job to check it because I'm a professionally trained dancer, always have been. Professionally trained martial artist, have been since I was 10 years old, 7 in terms of dancing. I had my first real dance instructor say, no, you're doing it wrong, in that tone when I was 7. I'm not a product of fun. I'm not a product of forgiving, helpful support of anything. Everybody who taught me at the back of the hand. And in that exuberant, at that kind of, well, that's in every bit of our music. That's why our music is so full of confidence. The confidence comes from the thousands and thousands of hours of training. When you finally get in front of the microphone or on stage, that's the victory dance. That's your vacation. Are you kidding? We trained like Spartans when we were kids.
David Lee Roth, Las Vegas. More hits than John Wick. Guitars. I need more guitars. And it sounds like the horses of God. Diamond Dave Train. Departing the Boneyard. Next stop, Sin City Backyard. Change coming. Maybe you heard. House Blues. Resident in Vegas, baby. Rockin'.
It's going to last forever. Once we start selling the tickets, they start adding the gigs. And Las Vegas is the epicenter of showbiz today because the venues are the best. Everybody's always played through Las Vegas. We always did. All the acts did. But what's changed is now all of us baby boomers who are crybaby, whiny-ass music critics who are unforgiving and not willing to accept less than extraordinary in terms of sound and lights and laser beam and let me see the new haircut. No, not yet. That's my inner child watching television. Okay? I apply the exact same standards to myself and every other artist who's my contemporaries. So when you go see Aerosmith, that's not your usual show. That's not down the street at the Armory for 17-minute drive. You had to go to Las Vegas. They have over 200 speakers in that room, surrounding the room for a sound system. That's worth the trip itself. And when we bring the kinds of music here that you're going to be listening to, my band will have been rehearsing for 8 months, not the usual 8 weeks. Think about that. It's a real good trick, isn't it? Like Charlie Chaplin or Leonard Bernstein. Our hair is messed up. We act kind of what's called wabi-sabi. Not wasabi, that's something you had at dinner at the sushi bar. Wabi-sabi, W-A-B-I-S-A-B-I. It means kind of rustic. It means that which is perfect because it's imperfect. You guys like Keith Richards? He's very wabi-sabi. Wabi-sabi. It's imperfect. Your favorite blue jeans that have holes in them are wabi-sabi. Look it up. You'll see there's many books written on it, etc. It's a concept. Rustic. In order to be that on stage, in order to appear loose, you had better be really structured. If you've ever seen Drunken Monkey Kung Fu performed, that's usually the last chapter in an athlete's career because it'll take you 15 years of structure before you can act drunk. Hair bands were the imitations of Van Halen, and spandex was what they came up with as something visual. Okay, I started off in leather with the same haircut that Bono and Springsteen and the guys in Metallica had. It's a famous haircut. If I had that haircut today, it'd have its own Instagram. With that in mind, it creased and it began. But Van Halen was a 70s band. We started off in 1972, and our first two albums were in the 70s. We started our first 10 million records before the 70s were over. We spawned a whole lot of imitators who resorted to gimmickry and, trade craft. It's easier to imitate a haircut and a kind of pants and to exhibit bad behavior as a way of gaining some sort of attention. Those bands are rarely played on your station. And if they are, it's infrequent. I'm going to guess that if you're anything like most classic rock stations, and I accept this as super lucky fortune, I'm probably on your station 14 times a day, unless it's Halloween or New Year's. I'm on more than Bono and Springsteen together because I'm way more fun to imitate. Especially after happy hour, you can admit it. You're going to get all of my classic catalog, and my whole catalog is classic. Whether it's California Girls Gigolo, and every one of those classic Van Halen material served up the way the record sounds. I'm bringing 3 guitars. And no, this is not some gameful, remember how it was. We're not strumming along with the devil. Okay, I've already fired 6 people here. We take this as seriously as the people who bought it, all right? People have picked up this music and they take it to a religious sort of a fervor, all right? I know people who've gotten married and decided to have families to this music. I know people who've listened to this music and decided to join the Marines. I know some people who are big fans of this, joined the Marines and didn't come back. And I know a guy who has requested that when he's buried, that we play Hot for Teacher as they lower the box. Literally, it's in print. You got to take that seriously. When I walk by, small children stop crying. Young house pets inexplicably obey your every command. Women feel desirable, and all men see me as a brother. That's the result of the music. That's Friday. That's not even Saturday. Saturday's the dance contest.
David Lee Roth.
Bags and a half.
Leaving it out.
Ozzy.
Sharon. The Dyers Cast.
Boneyard train leaving.
To Vegas, baby. Rockin'.
I never would have had the adventure or the color or met the people. I would have done the usual rock and roll spiral of, dude, what are you up to? Well, we're making a record. It's great. What do you expect? Yeah, we're going to hit the road. We're going to go on tour. Okay. All right, what's next? Well, we're going back on the road and we're back in the studio. And that's all you ever hear. Think of all the artists you've heard. All you ever hear. 1, 2, same place, same thing. Hey, is that a new nose bolt? Yeah, I'm wearing it on my way back to the studio. Hey, all that work and no play, all that no living, it's not even playing. It's you have to be the art project. You got to take yourself out into the territory and live. I moved to Japan for 2 years, didn't know a single word of Japanese, did not know a single person, and I was not in the rock and roll bubble. And I came back out a very different person. Every bit of that experience is in my voice now. I've been all over the world climbing, rock climbing, 22 different countries. And every single person that was involved in that experience is in my voice and in my stagecraft now. Had I not done that, it would have become very much like what a lot of my colleagues' lives are like. Very one-dimensional, back and forth. What are you singing about now? Oh, the hotel. What's the next song about? Groupies. Well, that's pretty thin existence. I prefer to take that Hunter Thompson, Mark Twain approach. Let's go out into the territory and see how it changes us as a human being. 5 summers since the last tour. Wait until you hear my voice. It's very different, and it's not because I practiced. It's because of a whole variety of human experiences. Shit, I joined the EMT, became an ambulance driver when I was 50 years old. As much to see what was in those buildings and work with the very people that I might not otherwise have access to. Guys like me wind up in the Elvis tube, insulated, tin foil on the window, isolation. Wow. If you're going to get high, isn't it better with other people? Not according to Elvis. Watch out. Elvis's birthday is my first day. My opening day, January 8th, turns out to be Elvis's birthday, so let's not let that the poetic value of that not sink in. Nevertheless, there are 3 stages of Elvis, just like there were 3 stages of Anna Nicole Smith. I'm a fan of the first stages of both, and Pamela Anderson Lee, I like the first 2 stages of Pamela Anderson. I'm a dark person. A lot of my favorite jokes aren't really funny, so I kind of get a kick out of 3rd stage Elvis, but that's not the one that wound up on the postage stamp. If you think about David Lee Roth, it may well be conditioned by my imitators, 6 of which are making a very good living in rock and roll today. Who's the coolest, hippest, smartest, sexiest guy ever in rock and roll that everybody says is all of those things? David Bowie. Well, there are many different stages of David Bowie because he grew and he let himself change, as opposed to perhaps for what Kiss does, where you assume a character and maintain the character. Although, much to their credit, even Kiss changes the costume. Batman today looks very different than he did when he was first in the comic book. If you allow yourself to change and grow, then you will probably have an enduring career, a 40 or 50-year career. If you assume a specific identity and repeat that over and over again, wow, then that becomes a bit like wrestling. And there can be great wrestlers, all right? But the music is a representation of who you are and your reflections of who you are, where you are at the given time. If that doesn't change, well, maybe you're being a character. I love Gene Simmons, but even Gene changes up that costume. So he's developing, and that's why they're still here. I'm thinking of other artists who I'm not going to name. Well, I'll think of one, for example, who is great, but is exactly the same from the time we discovered him right up to this very minute, and that's Neil Young. Neil is like a sea anemone. A sea anemone looks exactly the same when it's born as when it passes away 20 years later. Bruce Springsteen, another marvelous artist, a real contributor, is very much like a sea anemone. When we discovered him, he looked exactly the way he looks today. I am not that way. I'm like, I let it change. I let it change. Clinging to something specific may be an artistic decision. Like David Byrne from Talking Heads said, if you want people to remember you best, wear the same thing all the time. So when we look in Bruce's closet, there are 25 pairs of black 501 jeans and 25 long sleeve Dolce & Gabbana black shirts. Now, I say that's a considered artist subjugating his personality to the music and making it secondary. My sister, she's a little more sarcastic. She looks in the same closet and says that's clinical depression. The choice is yours.
David Lee Roth on a hellbound train. Mr. Motion, coast to coast. Ocean to ocean. Let's do this the old-fashioned way. Big time double guitar. That stuff sounds like a record. That's right. Just like the record. Diamond Day. We know each other. Vegas, baby! You and me till the wheels fall off. January and spring break. Let's kick this one off right between the weekends. Tap the screen. Get your tickets. Knock, knock. Who's there? You are. And I'm Diamond Day. Inviting you. You. And you. Go ahead. Say it first. Vegas, baby!
I love broadcasting, coming, of course, from the transitional point when it was in Screaming Boss Jock Wrecking Crew. Do you even still have a Screaming Boss Jock Wrecking Crew? Do you call it that in the morning? I got to have a t-shirt that says that. And those were actual, you want me to do my imitation? I can do the Screaming Boss Jock Wrecking Crew. 95 KHJ, hey, hopping and bopping and popping with the best bet for the boss beat at the top of the pop smash goal. And you would practice that when you were 10 years old. Then, when I was up in Youth Authority, we would listen on a tiny little transistor radio to Wolfman Jack screaming from mighty 1090 XCRB 1 million watts right over the border. And we thought that was a black man, and he was playing soul music. And then we realized, no, that's a greaser. We saw him in Physical Graffiti, and he's playing black music. And I can be the same thing. It's all kind of adding up. Come to Vegas, I'll show you what I mean. Is this making any sense? sense. Las Vegas, the last time that I did it was 20 summers ago, and it was transitional from when it was changing from Rat Pack to Family, not MTV Cool. I got fired from two of the biggest casinos for off-colored humor. I had a couple of really, really great-looking girls who were doing mambo dancing. They were Hispanic. And I stepped up to the mic and I said, this was 20 summers ago, I said, look at these girls. They're hot enough to convince Michael Jackson to quit the Boy Scouts. The next day I was fired and I'm out front with a shopping cart and a microphone. The next week I went over to Bally's. And we played at Bally's, and of course I was performing with Edgar Winter. Edgar Winter, brother of Johnny Winter, of course, played on California Girls and Gigolo. He was my music director for California Girls and Gigolo. That's a 4-song EP we made in one weekend, and I hired and brought in the whole David Letterman band. The whole band except for Paul Schaefer. And instead of Schaefer, I had Edgar Winter. Edgar is an albino. He's completely white, white skin, white hair, etc. And I walked up to him today, what would be considered very insensitive. I walked up to Edgar and I said to him, Edgar, lighten up. And they fired me for that. So that's not a joke. That's gainful employment down the pipe. No shit. I was fired.
David Lee Roth, 97.1. The Point. When was the last time you did something for the first time? First time's every night in Vegas, baby! Out into the territory and up to our back wheels. House of Blues. Moving in. Residents. Stomping ground. Philosophically speaking, what are y'all doing that night? What about all weekend? Besides, it's Vegas, baby!
Why me? Because I'm the best tool for the job. I'm not the best looking. I ain't very smart, but I can lift pretty heavy things. And the combination of determination and a respect for history, a respect for tradition, a respect for quality. And here we don't go on resumes. Virtually everybody who signs up has a huge resume. Oh, I played with this guy. I played with that guy. I did, yeah. How many hours do you have? I'm not getting into a helicopter with less than a 40,000 hour man. I'm going to guess you're about 40,000 hours yourself. I know a surgeon who operates on 2-year-olds, 2 hours old. That's a 40,000 hour man. I've been going since 1972, supporting myself with music. My parents threw me out of the house second week of high school senior year. I've been supporting myself with music, as have the Van Halens, and it's a reverence for that kind of nose to the grindstone. You tear your face off on that grindstone, and a commitment to what you do as an art form. And then when you bring it out front, smile and just tell them, hey, it's all for you, baby. Nobody wants to hear how hard you worked or how many storms at sea you incurred. Just bring the boat home. The difficulty is when you give it a label and it's justified. That's very much a moment of the 80s. Nobody ever thinks of Springsteen as a 70s band. Nobody ever talks about U2 as an 80s band. And indeed, Van Halen was an act that was created. We did our 5 sets a night, 5 nights a week for 5 years in the 70s. When we start to create other projects, frequently they really take on a specific, like a time capsule, and it's reminiscent of a specific time and a space, both visually, optically, and audioly. That group of musicians, much like jazz musicians perhaps do. You'll find something that represents an era, like Miles Davis's Bitches Brew, and then later on in life, it's a whole different kind of sound, and it represents that time period. That's probably the greatest single aspect of that band.
The Roth Show, brought to you by Ink, the Original.